Guys, tonight I'm going to do another production analysis. Tonight I'm going to go through a track I did. It's a techno track called The Machine Who Wept Bitterly. And the concept for it is, well, I had this image in mind basically of a modular synth that had been abandoned by its owner, but it was left plugged in and it's been there for years. And now what's happening is the components are breaking down because it's so aged, and the sound is kind of getting warped. And this whole techno track is basically the machine's way of crying out for distress. I'm going to start with the kick drum first though. So here's how it sounds. So very aggressive, got this rumble going on. So yeah, in terms of plugins, one of the main things is this overdrive. Here's the kick without it. Let me put it in. Way more aggressive, way more distorted, way more techno. Touch of VCA compression as well, not much. The secret is really this, it's reverb. Now with techno production, a really cool trick is to put reverb on your kicks and to create a rumble that's more continuous basically. And so I'm just using Silververb for this, and as you can see I've dragged the low cut down all the way to 70, and it's not going to be a brick wall filter, so we're getting lots of sub bass basically being generated by this kick drum on the reverb. And the effect is basically, it sounds like you've put your head outside and the wind's going 150 miles an hour or something. It's very, very intense. It's like a storm of bass. And that's how that industrial techno sound is made basically. First 4 bars, nothing really. Just letting the kick assert its presence. And then here's our initial 8 bars of melody. This is the random stuff. So this is essentially from when the machine's still in good health basically. The machine's just doing what it's supposed to. It's plugged in, generating random notes. Nothing wrong. And it really is generating random notes because before I bounced it in place, it was coming from retro synth. Just a triangle wave actually. If you look, I'm only using oscillator 2, and oscillator 2 is set to triangle wave. And in fact I can verify that also by zooming way in, and if you look carefully you can see the triangles within the waveform. And so this is literally just a triangle wave. It's as simple as it could be. And I've put an arpeggiator on it. So these are the chords I actually held down, and then I'll let the arpeggiator pick which ones to play, because the arpeggiator makes it monophonic basically. So it sounds very glitchy, very random, not much sense in there. And another thing I also did was I automated the decay time on the synthesizer. Again, you have to look before I bounced it. So it makes some of those notes very short and some of them are much longer, as you can see. Much smoother sound towards the end there. Right at the start, just got this pad. Well, it's throughout the track. And using retro synth again, this is in wavetable mode now, hence the blue interface. The interesting part is this pitch shifter though. Now, okay, I'll tell you now. So basically, this project says it's in C minor, this track appears to be in C minor based on the MIDI notes. Now, people who have perfect pitch may have noticed something's a little bit off about it, and there is. Everything in this track is pitched up by 50 cents or half a semitone. So it's not C minor in reality, and it's not C sharp minor either. Really, it's I guess you'd say it's C half sharp minor. Yeah, and some of the instruments I've pitched up by 50 cents using the pitch shifter built into Logic. Now, this is a really crappy plugin, I'm not going to lie. It doesn't matter. I've set it to drums, but it wouldn't matter. You can set it to speech, set it to vocal, manual, whatever. It generates a lot of artifacts. It's not very good. And admittedly, flex time suffers the same problem. It makes sounds very... You lose definition, and you get these weird sort of popping artifacts. So if I play the pad on its own without the pitch shift, it sounds very smooth. But I'll put this back on. You can hear not only has the pitch gone up slightly, also it's got this weird texture. It just sounds grainy. Doesn't sound clean, doesn't sound smooth. And that's because it's not, because of the pitch shifter and the artifacts it creates. So the only time I actually use this plugin is pretty much for degrading sounds. And then, yeah. So in terms of the beat itself, it's just a kick initially, and this snare, well, it's not really a snare, it's more of like a wooden block of some sort, just on the offbeat. I'm treating it like I would a hi-hat by putting it on the offbeats. And then our main melody enters. This is the main melody. It's the same triangle wave that I was just showing you a moment ago. But all these notes are actually programmed in. They're not just generated by an arpeggiator. I do actually have an arpeggiator on this track though. Because sometimes there's a note which hangs over the beat, basically, like this one. You can see it's kind of too long for its own good, and it lingers over to the third beat of the bar. What the arpeggiator will do, I've got it set to 16th, so it's gonna repeat this note. It's gonna play it twice. So any notes that are hanging over the beat, that are longer than one of these white squares on the grid, it doubles them up. So what it's doing is it's taking my original melody and it's making it sound a bit more glitchy, a little bit more random, a little bit more machine-like. But I'll turn it off for a moment again so we can look at the notes themselves. So if you see carefully, it's kind of grouped into fives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it jumps down again and does the next section. And what this does is this creates a 4/5 or 5/4 polyrhythm, basically. No, that's not it. Hang on. Dum 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 dum. Yeah, that's it. It's a very weird polyrhythm. Your brain naturally gravitates towards the highest notes of any part of any instrument. Say you are listening to a choir, then you're going to perceive the melody to be whatever the sopranos are singing. Your brain's always interested in what the top note is. And so if I take these top notes and I'll put the click on as well. You can hear they're totally syncopated. That's my 5/4 polyrhythm I'm on about. So it's a very syncopated melody, but it sounds very mournful. Then at bar 29 I dropped this glass thing in here. Up to this point I'm keeping it really restrained. That's one of the things with minimal techno, you need to assert to your listener that you have complete control over the energy level of this track. You know, you choose when you're going to open a filter. Sometimes you sort of like threaten to open a filter as well. Here's a point where I do that. I really am just asserting my control over the mix by doing this. On my main melody, I've just taken the high cut frequency on the EQ, dragging it around, threatening essentially to open it up all the way, but I don't. I back off on purpose, and then I do it over the course of 8 bars. Don't want to do anything too suddenly in techno. Well, you can, but be careful what it is. You don't want to give everything away too soon. So I've got this glass thing. We hear it on the left first. It's a counter melody essentially. And then we hear it on the right. You can see I've panned it 31 left and 31 right. So it's completely out the way of the lead synth, which is in the centre. I generated this sound in Sculpture, just opened it up and dragged the material slider to halfway between glass and wood. Which is kind of what it sounds like actually. To give it a bit of sheen, I've used Valhalla Shimmer. Great reverb plugin. It adds this aura, this kind of like glitter almost, to a sound. Here's without. I'm using loads of it as well. You can hear how the reverb tail is made enormous. It's a massive sounding reverb. And so everything's quite tranquil in this first section up until like bar 45 basically, because you never want to give away too much too soon. And then like I said, I do open that filter up, and then all these loads of elements enter, and yeah, I'll solo them so you can hear what they are. So these are all new elements that enter at bar 45. All panned, and none of them are in the center. So this is using the same patch actually. It's still using the same triangle wave, but these are like elaborations to the melody. On the left first, and then on the right. Like so. This little polyrhythm happening here. Again, it's just another polyrhythm. It's it's not in phase. It's not in phase with the click. Got this stuff as well. I've panned this one out all the way to the left for extra emphasis, to double up the note as well. Like that. And yeah, my main melody is shifted over to this track now, but it's the same sound. And all I've done is given it a longer release time or decay time, so the notes sound distinctly longer and smoother. That's how it sounds all together. And then out of nowhere, this new synth comes in. It's actually the loudest element, at least according to your ears. This is the loudest element in the mix, this thing here. And it's really just a breath of fresh air. Nice little sort of jumpy little phrase which just emphasises the C minor scale, I guess. And for that I'm using ES2, which can produce some lovely tones as well. And the trick again is this Valhalla shimmer. You want to hear it without? It's nice, but it's not this. There's the aura I'm talking about. Bar 61, the arrangement changes quite a lot. The melodies drop out pretty much, and yeah, the melodies drop out, and all we have is this pad here, essentially leading the way. I've put a tremolo on it to give it that choppy sound. And as you can see the shape moving, I've actually automated this parameter called symmetry, and the higher the symmetry pretty much, the smoother the sound. Yeah. And just by shifting it subtly, I'm kind of adjusting how choppy it sounds. A lower symmetry will sound more choppy. I'll just give you an example. Let's put it on 1%. And now if I play a chord, very choppy compared to if I put it on 60, let's say. Very soft, smooth attack. So it's doing that again. Nice little bit of Valhalla shimmer. And the glass are now just playing little chords, moving in parallel motion. Just plays a chord, then the top note's moving up while the bottom note's moving down. So the chord is kind of expanding until it's covering like a good couple octaves of range. Breakdown kind of at 69, and this is when I kind of go a bit nuts with the reverb on the kick. You can hear it's just a huge reverb. So I'll show you what I've done. So I've increased the wet reverb percentage from 67 to 92, so now I'm just asking for all the wet signal as well, basically. But that's not all. There's also this second kick drum, basically. The second kick drum is like completely wet, basically. Doesn't have much definition. That's how it sounds on its own, very overdriven. and that only enters on the second and fourth hits of the kick drum here, basically, just for emphasis. It's just a huge storm of bass, essentially. And also another thing that changed at bar 61 was these hats. I wanted a change of pace, so instead of just having it like on the offbeat once, predictable, changed it up. So it's in these little groups of 2. Needed something just to nudge it along. Then actually on this third hit here, if I solo it, I've actually got 3, well, you hear 3 hits, it's like a triplet. Boom, boom, boom. Just to make that really, really emphasised. Obviously, the triplets clash rhythmically. Those are like 8th triplets, and they're going to clash with the, you know, like the tremolo of the pad, which is operating on a 16th note. And then at the end of the section, there's a nice bar of break. Just nothing, apart from that, the tail end of the last notes. When you're writing a track, you know, composing, arranging, silence is such an important tool. You can create so much anticipation just by waiting. Now, you hear this old familiar melody on this old familiar instrument, and you think, oh, I know what's going to happen, it's just a lazy techno track. He's just going to copy and paste it, essentially. Well, it seems that way at first, but it's not what I'm going to do. Because then, this resonant squelchy thing comes in. Look at this. It's coming from retro synth, and what I've done is I've just whacked the resonance up on the filter really high, like 70–80%, and I've automated it a little bit so it goes even higher, and obviously the sound and the pitch that you get, the sort of the pitch of the chirp, if you like, is also determined by the actual cutoff frequency. So I'm also moving that around, only ever so slightly. You only have to move it by a hair to hear the difference. So that's doing that. And I've also got this a third layer essentially to the melody, because all these they're all playing the same notes, they're all playing the same melody that we've been hearing, but they're playing it in different timbres on different waveforms. So this one is more like a square wave. What I've done I've used ES2 and I've generated a that's triangle wave again, but I've given it some drive, 33% drive, and I've also used the overdrive plugin as well, which can be pretty aggressive. So this is just a different timbre. Sounds very different. And I've blended that with the original. So when the melody returns, especially when the kick drum and the whole beat kicks in again, you hear the same melody, but it's restated, and it sounds much more emphatic, much more wistful. Another cool little thing happens here. When this enters this pad, which it's just gently doing some tremolo movement, but like with this pad, I was only really using it for this. It has a tremolo on it, but it's quite smooth. It's not choppy. It's very smooth. But then just as it entered, I had this idea. I think I'd been listening to a track called "The Last Dance" by Eagles and Butterflies, and they play around with tremolo a lot, and they change the LFO rate of it all the time, like this. Gets faster and slower. Especially here. It's all over the place. So that's where I was getting some inspiration from when I did this. I also like to spice up the hats just before a new section. So like I said, it's just on the offbeat, but then on that last, just as it's transitioning into the new section, I've added these extra notes. You can really hear that. Just a nice way of signalling to the listener that change is inevitable. And so now here we are. This is the restatement, but the sounds are more distorted, and actually the kick's more aggressive now because like it has a compressor on it, but the ratio was very low. I had it on like 1.6, 2 in a couple spots, but then I start automating it until it sounds like this. Let's see the compressor. So here we go. I really like the vintage compressors in Logic. So like I was using the vintage FET. I've actually got one on the master bus as well. But here I'm using FET compression on the kick, on one of the bus tracks here, and I'm also using vintage VCA. In both of these, color sound heavily. So that sounds much more distorted than it does here. So full on, even more aggressive now. I've also created a distorted version of my little glass thing here. That melody is very mournful. It's just moving by step. This is a good trick for writing melodies as well. If you want a melody to sound kind of mournful, you want to sort of move notes by step, and you want to linger on the notes that are essentially the weak notes. So here we land on that on this A flat, and that's the note that yearns in essence to be resolved. You can't just stop there, it has to resolve. So it lands on the G, gives you what you're after. And to distort this sound, I'm again using this free plugin Iron Oxide 5, and I've just whacked 15 decibels of input gain, so we're getting essentially 15 dB of tape distortion. Sounds like that. It's also generating a bit of like noise, which sounds a bit like dynamic tape hiss in the background. And this is a layer though. We don't just hear that, we hear it with the original as well. Sounds like that all together. I've got this. One more element enters. It's this. So ES2's got a noise filter, a noise oscillator. Sorry. And it's here on this on oscillator 3. You can set it to noise, and it sounds like this. It's like a percussive white noise effect. It's great because you can tell it how long you want the notes to be. You can control the envelope and everything. And so I'm just controlling the filter cutoff to bring that in and out. And then here, I kind of end prematurely. There's 2 beats and nothing. Not a whole bar this time, but just 2 beats. Everything just kind of hangs in the air. Before you go back to that kind of secondary section with the pad. And it sounds, the pad's very distant this time. My reverb's on 70% wet now. You can still just about hear the tremolo though. It hasn't lost all its definition. And here, just got my my kicks basically being low pass filtered right at the end here. You can hear it's getting really distant. All you're really hearing is the wet reverb because I've automated the dry level to come down. So it's just descends into this sub-bass rumble in the end. That's all that's left of it. I keep my little cheeky hi-hat pattern here. Yeah, and that's how the track ends. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything about this track. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yeah, keep up to date, stay up to date with my new content, and we'll see you soon.